What's up? Episode 54. Kind of different setting today. At my work office. Late. Kind of stopped in real quick to pick some stuff up. Got a golf tournament in the morning. And I'm going to lose real bad because I suck. And my team's probably going to do bad. But that's not really the point of this podcast. This is the Lowdown part 2, so figured now is as good a time as any. I've got some notes in front of me. I talked about it in episode 52 that there'd be a second part to that episode that I never really uploaded. So this is 54. So I took another job, moved from Pittsburgh to Binghamton, and it just didn't work out. Like, I don't want to say I hated it because there's some elements that I really, really enjoyed, but it just was not a good fit. And there were a couple things going on that really didn't work out in my favor, weren't going to work out in the company's favor. They had a consultant that, in my opinion, was not doing things that were the best for the business. So I took a job at this company as operations manager. So, you think that I'd have a little bit of ability to do stuff. Now, come back to that. So, before I started there, the company was doing poorly. Like, potentially going out of business poorly. Shipping about 35,000, 40,000 a month, which, some of you may seem like a lot of money, but when you look at cost of running a business and overhead and really the baseline overhead of what it costs to pay all your employees to come in and do nothing with the lights off and all equipment off all day, what does that cost? And then your overhead, so that's your fixed overhead, and then your variable overhead is, okay, as we get bigger and busier, and we have to start spending money to make money, as in buying material, running machines, and spending money on the electricity, tooling, anything like that, and or overtime hours, that baseline starts to increase. So then you have what your sales are, and they start at zero, and your profit margin will increase and drive upwards, theoretically sharper and faster than what your variable overhead increases until there's an intersection point. That intersection point is where you break even for a month. So for this company, it was somewhere in the $160,000 a month range for them to break even. So 35,000 and 40,000 a month is not cutting it. It's not helping. All right, so the month I started there was September. We shipped, I think, $180,000. So it was a break-even month. A little bit over, but considering the months just passed, the quarter was a total flop. That, I would say, in September is no part to me. That's that sales finally came in, stuff like that. October was another low month, but this is where I start to come into play. So October we shipped $80,000. So another losing month. However, that was the tip of a very large project, a couple of very large projects, and it was all like set up. So there's a certain amount of work that had to be done before you could start shipping, and that was October. Now, November shipped 220. So huge increase. December, we were on track to ship $260,000 with February booked in the black, or January booked in the black, and February booked in the black, and booking jobs for March. So keeping a steady backlog, all stuff we would have been able to do. Now, back up a second. That $80,000 month and everything. And September, really. So, yes, we were able to ship 180 and break even, but we were tapped. So this company was, I don't know now, plagued with inefficiency. And I'd say that in not necessarily a bad way, but just kind of a statement, a fact. So when I started there, I asked everyone, how efficient do you think you are? And, anyone that's dealt with being asked that question, you typically overstate. You might think that you're 70-80% efficient. These guys said 40 to 50% efficient is what they thought they were. And I'm like, you know what? I think most people overestimate, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that. That seems like a fair assessment, right? So I would say 80% is about your target, like really peak performance. By the time you factor things like startup at the beginning of the day, where you got to turn all the air compressors on and wait for it to, really build pressure through the whole system, start the machines, do any daily maintenance you have to do, any setup for the jobs, breaks, lunch, cleanup, shut down at the end of the day. I mean, all of that takes time out of your day, and you may call it performance, efficiency. You can kind of judge it differently, but for all intents and purposes, in your normal standard day, you can only be about 80%. It's a pretty fair number. So that's kind of how I was looking at it, is 80% would be the target. So if you think you're half of that, there's a lot of room for improvement. Now, the crew started at about at 5:30 in the morning. So long, we were working 5:30 to 3:30, 5:30 to 4:30. I don't know, 10-hour days, 4 10s. And almost every day when I started there, we had one operator that ran punch press and press brake. So he was kind of jumping between them. But you'd come in the morning and there'd be no jobs programmed for punch. Every day, 5:30, he's going, hey, I don't have a job to do at punch. Okay. So the programmer goes, oh yeah, you're right. I'll run in, I'll program you the next job. Job would come out to the floor anywhere from 5:45 to 6 o'clock. That punch press, both punch presses ran on a pallet loader. So if it's running a full skid, you might be 20 sheets. It might take an hour before parts are actually coming off that machine for them to go to what we call shake, where you have to, knock some joints out and get the parts out of the sheet. So those would have to be deburred and then be prepped to go over to the press brake. So if stuff wasn't coming off the pallet loader until about 6:45, say, they're not hitting shake till then. They're, at best, the first parts are hitting press brake by 7 o'clock. And then the guy that was running punch and press brake only worked till 11. He was a half-day part-time guy. So if stuff would start hitting press brake around 7 o'clock, he'd form the stuff that had to go to welding first so that it could all hit powder coat at the same time. So the stuff would make its way to weld around, say, 8 o'clock. He'd keep working through the stuff that didn't have to go to weld. Then it would be coming out of welding, say, 9 o'clock. And then the prep and painter guy have now been standing around for effectively 3.5 hours each. Not doing anything because they didn't have anything to do. So sometimes, depending on, how that shifted, if it was a little later than that, they may not even start the furnace until after lunch because they're going to go to lunch at 11. Why are you going to heat it up just to walk away from it? So they may only prep in the morning and not paint until after lunch. All this time, our assembly department was waiting for parts to come off paint. They couldn't build anything because they didn't have anything to build. Based on that one operator being half day, no more jobs would flow through punch after he left. So basically, you'd have a late start for these other departments, but effectively everyone was working half days. So you complete all the work at the end of the day, but at that point, entire departments haven't been working half the day. That's the type of inefficiency that I started with. And then we were able to hire some people sometime in October there when things picked up. We hired a punch press operator and press brake operator, so now these things could work in tandem and full day and then still have the help of that part-time guy. So we had those types of inefficiencies. We were punching 10 to 20 sheets a day between those jobs because once one of those jobs would end, the next he'd go, hey, I don't have a job to do. And then they'd program another one. So some of the efficiencies that were introduced were, if we have all these jobs and we have all these orders, I want them all programmed. There's no reason to sit on a job and not program it. So we started programming jobs as soon as we got the order so that they could funnel out to the floor when they were ready to punch them. So we were able to improve a lot there. Now, within that department, if we were punching 10 to 20 sheets and I had them tracking it, we started punching upwards of 80 sheets a day just by having all the jobs programmed. Now let's go back to if 80% was optimum, and I don't believe we've reached optimum. We still had room for improvement. But 80% is optimum, and we went from 10 sheets a day to 80. You can't do that if you were at 40% efficiency. We were probably riding the line, at least in that department, of under 10% efficient, which is mind-blowing that you could operate that bad. Now, some scheduling and everything, we were able to bring that in even tighter. And that trickled through the whole plant, which is how we were able to push, I don't want to say the number yet, but I said we were on track for 260 for December. And the number is substantially more than that made it out that month. However, I'll come back to that. We had other efficiency issues, and really, this is where my sticking point started to get. We had a consultant that was not doing what was good for the business, not making good decisions for the business, making decisions that were good for him personally, and that's a problem. So, unrelated to that necessarily, although I needed his approval to even do anything, I had my maintenance guy come up to me with about a quarter of the lights in the entire building out and ask me if I minded that he put a light bulb in when he had it in the shop. I'm like, dude, frankly, I mind if you don't. You have the light bulb. Why would you not put it in? And he looks at me and goes, well, it's kind of an expensive light bulb. So I didn't know if you minded if I used it. And I'm like, man, I want you to replace all the light bulbs that are out. He's like, well, I only have 5. I go, okay, well, you get those 5 and I'll get you more light bulbs. Like, let's improve this place. So he finally gets the time, goes up on the lift, pulls that light bulb down, and I say finally, he did it right away. But these lights had been out since they had a different operations manager before me that would not let them replace light bulbs because it would cost too much money to replace the light bulbs, leave them dark. We're not burning electricity if we don't have light bulbs in, which, jokes on that guy, they were ballast lights. They're definitely burning electricity all the time. That's why they get hot. And they're getting a constant draw whether they're powering a light bulb or not. So if I remember to, I'm going to take a note right now, 16. I will insert a picture of the wires that came out of this first light fixture, in which case I instructed him to tear them all down and replace every one of them with the LED conversion. So the wires were completely bare, like in multiple spots, and just damaged from age, heat. It's really hard to say exactly, but they were a fire hazard. So instruct him to pull them all down. I tell them we need to order light bulbs, and I needed to get signatures galore, at least 3, just to order light bulbs for the company. Now consider, I'm the operations manager. How can I manage the operations if you don't let me even buy light bulbs? This is a recurring issue with multiple things, credit cards, buying anything for the company. Like, I understand you have to have limits, that you can't spend over this amount of money without an approval. I got it. Like, what is that limit? Because apparently it was like $1 that I needed approval to spend. We never really did get through it, and they wouldn't let me order more than 5 light bulbs at a time. So, like, God forbid we need to replace the light bulbs. We also had tanks in our wash line on the powder coat line that had to be filled with water up to a certain level, to keep water in the wash tanks, and then soap and everything. Well, we had the one operator had to go check them continually to make sure that they had enough water in them. And after watching him continually check these, I'm like, hey, why are we filling these manually? Why don't you put a float and a solenoid valve in here? Well, we used to have one, but it stopped working, so we just ripped it out, and now we have to fill them manually. And I'm like, dude, how much of your day are you wasting having to check the level of the tank when it should just fill automatically? Kind of rhetorical. I don't think it was ultimately that much time, but still, you've got 3 tanks and you ripped the solenoids and floats out of all 3 of them because something wasn't working right, instead of fixing it and keeping the plant running efficiently. Elsewhere in the plant, the furnace would not, the powder coat furnace, the thermostat was broken in it, so it would not maintain or regulate temperature. It would just go all the way up or off. And if you tried to set it lower, when it tripped off, it wouldn't reignite, and it would just cool itself down. So the fix for that was that when parts got halfway through the furnace, the operator would run over and turn the furnace off. And as the parts came out and the next ones had gone halfway through, he'd run back over and turn the furnace back on. And this is how we powder coated. For that was probably the last 2 months I was there. Uh, it's just mind blowing, frustrating, dangerous. We tried to get someone in to look at the furnace, and let's see, 20 minutes. All right, I will add the pictures of the furnace wiring. At some point, someone decided to rewire the furnace, but they did it almost entirely with red wires only. So there was no wiring diagram for the furnace, and there was no color coding to the wires. It was just red. So we couldn't get anyone to fix that at that point in time. Now, all of this is happening. It's very frustrating. I finally got some approval to start, oh, all right, powder coat line, tanks. On top of the tanks not filling themselves, the water and soap needed to be heated to quote unquote room temperature, which is usually like anywhere from 70 to 100 degrees. On paper, that's what it's supposed to be. But they say room temperature because 70 will work. So it was about 40 degrees in there. You're doing everything but letting the water freeze in that tank. And the soap is not activating and washing the oil off of the metal. Of course it's not. 40 degrees. That's not room temperature. But they didn't think it was important to heat the water after their boiler went out. So they went from soap that had to be heated near boiling to room temp soap and thought 40 degrees room temp, outside temp, was going to be sufficient. So I did finally get approval to get a small tank heater to heat that water and fix the solenoid's floats. So all of that finally got fixed. But in the meantime, we were working on our budget and our sales forecast for the following year, which was this year, 2022. So in doing so, we were told that they were going to not pay commission, take that right out of the sales forecast and the budget. Now, anyone that works in sales or has worked in sales, if your company is making money and you're paying commission, you're making money. Like, no matter what, you're only paying commission on the profits. So you're making money if you're paying commission. But if you tell your sales team that they are no longer going to make commission and they're not getting a raise and any other reason, what's the motivation for them to grow sales as opposed to just sit there and collect the same orders as they come in until the business dries up? So we were told to take all sales commission out of the forecast. As I mentioned before, we were on track to do 260,000 for that month of December. We had, I think it was like 220,000 on the books for January, 240,000 on the books for February. We were booking for March. And we would have had some leeway to pull things in or out. We were not tapped capacity wise or efficiency wise. That was throttled back to have profitable months where we could still pull work in and increase those numbers while booking the major jobs out into March. So I was asked by the consultant how much of that work can be pulled in And I looked through my schedules and I'm like, you could ship over 300,000 this month, up from 260. But if you ramp these guys up to working that fast, you'll punch every order that you have for the rest. Like all of our bookings through February will be punched by the end of this month. And you'll have no work in the shop. And he said, do it. But don't take that money out of the February or January and February forecast either. Leave the forecast there, just overship December. And I'm like, you can't have that money in two places. If we're going to ship it, you can't say we're going to ship that much in January too, because you can't make that sale. You can't make up the sales. You can't spool back up. Like, remember October, we were prepping for that big job. If you have a big job, it takes time to get all the parts made for that. So I'm like, if you do this, you are shooting yourself in the foot for next year. So, you know, again, he's in it for himself, and we know that, but he was getting some sort of payment on how much we shipped, not on the overall performance. So that is what it is. Anyway, at that point, looking at the overhead, the variable overhead, the sales that would be on for the beginning of the following year if we ship 320, and just the way it was all going to shake out, plus some other opportunities that I had in front of me, I pursued the other opportunities and left the company, myself and the salesperson. And so the salesperson was also I was operations manager. What was she? Just like the sales manager, more or less. So everything else other than operations. So we both left at the same time because we needed to cut the overhead if that company had any chance of surviving. And they are still active. They're still operating. They definitely struggled, but they did end up shipping that 320 in December. And then they had some really terrible months after that. Like, they're just now recovering. So it's been a tough one all around in that regard. So let's see. Are there any other things? I don't think I've got anything else that I need to say on that. Other than that, you know, you can't pull everything in. You just crash your own business. So I don't remember what their sales were. I know some of the people that still work there. They kind of gave me the info, but frankly, there was a period of time where I didn't care. I don't think the owner cares about the company. I think that based on when I would, okay, I'll back up another one. Another example of just what are you guys doing? I'm confident that there's some tax benefit to this company existing. We had a part that came in that someone needed two panels, maybe one panel. You needed a custom panel made. One panel would be made out of one sheet of steel. You know, there's a brace in it, it gets punched, the main panel gets punched, it all gets formed, it gets welded, it gets powder coated. So this was cutting in a paint color on our paint line to make one panel that had to be custom designed to fit their needs. And again, one, So all this said and done, my purchasing and planning person comes back to me and says, hey, this part is going to cost $60. So whatever you want to charge for it, mark that up. $60 is the cost. Punched, formed, welded, painted. And I'm like, it's not $60. I've been telling you guys that you're undercharging and that our costing is messed up. And here's a perfect example. This part takes you one full sheet of steel that you pay $110 for. You punch it, the rest goes in the scrap. You punch it, you shake it, you press brake it, you weld it, and you powder coat it. How can it cost less than the sheet of steel that you made it from when you've processed it? And we went round and round and round, and it came down to the way that they're calculating things, and they can just add a factor to it, but it's not going to fix the costing. And I started making a bigger stink about the costing, because what are we doing? You can't charge less than the steel. And I was told to stop digging and stop asking questions by the owner and finance. So, fine. I will. So, anyway, I had never, I turned in my notice at my old job when I first left, and continued to support them, 20 to 30 hours a week, which is a lot on top of a full-time job. Not every week, but most weeks it was 20 to 30 hours. Continued to do that all the way up through us, end of December. We're pushing into December, and we are getting good contracts and good orders still with my old job, and had the conversation, you guys want me back. So I and my salesperson from the other company work for my old job, but still in Binghamton. So kind of win-win in that case. Back here, still have a sweet office so you guys can kind of see just like the nice woodwork behind me. Ryder's got a picture on the wall. Got a bunch of work going on over here, but no big deal. I feel like it's kind of a cluttered workspace as far as a podcast goes, but whatever. So that's kind of the lowdown too, in like just a really loose format, a little bit of hopping around. But anyway, back with the company that I left a couple months ago. Well, a year ago now. That's crazy. So don't really have anything else going on, you know what I mean? Like, I know as followers of GrindWorks, you really haven't seen too much. I don't know if you guys want a Lowdown 3 or if you just want it now, but material prices are still really high, like continuing to go up almost, it feels like. And I've gotten material pricing. I have not gotten back any quote from the shop because the material pricing hadn't changed from the last time that they were quoted at costing me $21 a piece to have them machined. Then I got to put packaging and manufacture, like all the, the peripherals on them. And unless you guys want to be paying $30 a peg, it's just not practical at the moment. So, kind of in a holding pattern there. I don't know how I feel about this entirely. I know where my gut feels, but I could try to get some made overseas to continue facilitating doing cool things. But at the same time, it's like not what we want to be doing as a brand. So I'm between a rock and a hard place on that one, because we could do it. I could keep doing cool things. We could still make, American made ones kind of in limited runs at a higher cost for people that want it explicitly. We could, wait and see what the pricing does, or we could just not do anything. And I just don't know how I feel about either one. I don't like not doing anything. I feel like GrindWorks has afforded a lot of cool opportunities for trips, for jams, for other people's jams to sponsor that, for people, meeting people, networking, just opportunities in that sense. And I really hate to not do it. So I've started looking at that, and I have a potential supplier for that, but I really don't love the idea. So I'm still struggling. Everybody I've talked to on this and has said that you shouldn't let it go over material pricing and making it overseas when you can continue to do cool things for the scene and for everyone else by doing that, even if it's just temporarily. So I'm still weighing it. I think that's probably what we'll end up doing at some point. But right now I still got a little bit of stock of streetlight pegs, and I've got a lot of stock of foundations, but I don't expect those to go away. That's always been our, super niche product, where if you know you need it, but if you're unsure, you don't need it. So that's really about it. It's just been like kind of dead space in the meantime with the GrindWorks products and everything, because I can't promote them if we're not going to have them. And if I have nothing to promote, then we just get kind of in a vicious cycle. I can't give anyone anything. I can't hook people up anymore. I can't sponsor events because I don't have any product to give away. It's like this just terrible spiraling problem. Right now I do have some shirts. We did the I Love Pegging shirt. We did still have a few of the Peg Life pocket tee, I believe. They may not be up on the website. We've got wax up on the website. We've got the pegs themselves. So there's still some stuff. I've just been really low key and not promoting it. As far as events and everything go, just a quick reminder that October 8th at Rockies is the Styles for Miles Jam. That, if you listen to episode 53, then you'll get some information on that and the terrible story that surrounds that jam. So, hopefully we see everyone there. I'll have a little bit of stuff to give away at that. I think we're going to try to set up a table and actually, table the event as well. And that is next weekend. Well, next weekend for me, October 8th for you guys. Hopefully I'll get this up tomorrow, tonight. I don't know. Let's see. Anything else? I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. That's the Lowdown 2. And posted a photo today because we actually got out and rode. Derek and I got out and rode. Derek and I got out and rode the Owego skate park There's some little DIY stuff going on there. So cool that dudes are getting out and building stuff. Hopefully can get involved in a little bit of that, although I don't want to, get too involved because it's their gig and whatnot, but could definitely use stuff to be like this much taller so that you can ride it on a bike. Some of it's pretty low. Anyway, rode there, did some cool stuff. Really haven't been filming much. Anytime we get out and ride, it's more been just passion rides where we're just out to cruise, doing what we feel like doing. Nothing spectacular, but I did post a cool photo on Instagram today of Derek just riding this like cone thing. It's a silo cap that's concreted over at that Owego DIY. So check that photo out on Instagram. Otherwise, you'll see some stuff here and there, but again, like just been pretty low key. If anyone wants to do a podcast episode, though, I'm super down. Love to be recording more of these. Maybe do them here at this office. Maybe do them out kind of live in the field somewhere. Whatever you guys want to do. I don't care. I'm pretty open. Over the phone, over Discord. I don't have anything else to say right now. Just figured I'd get this one off to you guys. Close out the Lowdown setup. And I guess I'll just see you on the next one. We're past the 50 mark, and I got at least at 100. That's the 001. Decided that we gotta hit 3 digits. So we're at 54, I said. So we'll see you at 55. Thanks, guys. Check out the web store, www.grindworksbmx.com. Check out the Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at grindworks_BMX. And then Facebook and who knows what else, blah, 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 is just GrindWorks BMX. So catch you guys later. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you next time.